Welcome into PFF's Three High Safeties. Austin Gayle here with my guys, Ben, Linsey, and Mike Renner, ready to rip it up after Week 8. Ben, starting with you. What do the New England Patriots do? People want them to do a fire sale, trade Stephon Gilmore, trade the McCourty brothers, trade Cam Newton, trade everyone, and take for Trevor. What can they do? What do you think happens with New England?
I don't think they go full tank because the fact is there are worse teams in the NFL than the Patriots. They're not going to get a top 3 pick. But I do think it's smart to trade off some of their veteran guys like Gilmore, Thuney, whoever teams are interested in, while they still have some value. We've seen with a team like the Bengals and Carlos Dunlap, Geno Atkins, AJ Green, if you hold on to those guys too long, they're going to lose value. And I don't think the Patriots are super close to being a contender. So get rid of those guys while you can.
Yeah, I think it's time to be realistic about this roster and where you're at. You're 2-5. And you have the strength of your roster the past couple of years was the secondary, and all of a sudden it's old. Stephon Gilmore's 30. You know, Devin McCourty is 33. Jason McCourty, he's 33 also. They're twins. So, I mean, it has gotten to the point where the best part of that team is now on the downside of their careers and is not getting better anytime soon. And they had a bunch of opt-outs. And like I said, their cap situation isn't great right now. So I think if you can move any of those older pieces for something, it's the time to do it.
Yeah, I think the obvious move for them is to trade Stephon Gilmore. He wasn't active in this past week. I think trading him for what you can coming off the Defensive Player of the Year honors, I think makes sense. But after that, there's not a ton they can do. You're not trading for the Devin McCourty brothers who are 33, and I think the other guy is also 33. Like, I don't think you're going to be able to trade a ton of other capital here, I think. And take for Trevor, this team is not a quarterback away. Like, the receiving core is horrendous. The defense is going to need youth a ton. I think they're in a better position to play the season out with Cam Newton, be in that kind of picking, 8 to 16 spot, add some talent, and then look to 2021 to even take and add a quarterback in this upcoming class. I don't know. I think it's an interesting situation for New England. There isn't a clear solution. And plus, everyone's saying tank for Trevor. They played the New York Jets twice this season. They're not tanking for Trevor. Okay, New York Jets have him locked up.
Yeah, he's a future Jet. I think at this point it's safe to say. The big game last week was Steelers-Ravens, and it was another disappointing performance from Lamar Jackson. So is this just expected regression, or have teams sort of figured out how to defend him?
I'll just say there's no shame in not playing well against that Steelers defense. That's the best defense in the NFL right now. But the games before that, not playing well against teams like the Bengals, I think there is some sort of teams are figuring out where Lamar Jackson's strengths and weaknesses are. You're never going to bottle him up completely as a runner. He is a special quarterback in that regard, probably the most athletic athlete we've seen at that position since at least Michael Vick, maybe even better than Michael Vick. But as a passer, he does struggle in certain areas. Most importantly, throwing outside the numbers. He has the lowest completion percentage among starting quarterbacks throwing outside the numbers. Some guys that are lower than him, Mitchell Trubisky, have already been benched this season. He is just not accurate when asked to do that, but they don't, in that offense, ask him to do it a lot. So teams are packing the middle of the field, limiting the big plays that he had so often in 2019, throwing down the field over the middle and making him throw outside the numbers. And that, I think, is going to be the blueprint on him going forward. And so you may not ever get that explosive offense we saw from him in 2019.
Yeah, there is a bit of a blueprint out on Lamar Jackson. It's forcing him to throw outside the numbers, forcing him to throw down the football field because, point blank, he's not an accurate quarterback. Among all quarterbacks with at least 600 passes since 2018, he is the least accurate one. Number 35 of 35. And even this season, 55% accurate according to PFF's charting. The same number we saw last season. The difference, he's not getting the open throws down the football field, and it's not easy. There's not schemed open throws for this offense like there was a year ago. Lamar Jackson, there is a glaring weakness with his game. It was called out when he was coming out of Louisville. He's not a very accurate quarterback throwing down the field. Teams are catching up.
Yeah, and a big reason that didn't matter last year was he wasn't making mistakes. Through the first 8 weeks of the 2019 season, he only had 5 turnover-worthy plays. He already has 12 this season, wow. over double. So when you combine that inaccuracy as a passer with those interceptions, those passes that could be intercepted, it's not a great formula. And I think that's a big thing we've seen with Jackson this year.
So Tuesday, fellas, is the biggest day all year long. The NFL trade deadline is Tuesday. What moves do you want to see happen before the deadline?
So there are a ton of moves that I think are going to happen. I think Stephon Gilmore does get traded. I think Arizona, maybe Baltimore makes sense. I think Desmond King also gets traded. He was inactive due to a team decision this past week against the not Cincinnati Bengals, whoever they played, upset against
Broncos.
the Broncos. That's who it was. But the player I want to see move, Ryan Kerrigan, the Washington football team edge defender, to the Las Vegas Raiders. They need a pass rush. It's been one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. No, the worst pass rush in the NFL from a pressure percentage standpoint since trading away Khalil Mack. The worst since then. And they don't have any help along that defensive line. They're all young players. Mo Hurst, Clelin Ferrell, Max Crosby, Arden Key. None of them are getting pressure at a high rate. Add Ryan Kerrigan to the mix. Improve that defense even slightly, because maybe they can be contenders just coming off a road win over the Cleveland Browns.
I'm going to go back to the Ravens in a trade with the Atlanta Falcons, not for Matt Ryan, not for Julio Jones, for Alex Mack. And he's someone who I think is more realistic for the Falcons to deal. He's getting up there in age. They drafted his potential replacement this past offseason in Matt Hennessy. And the Ravens could use an upgrade at center. Matt Skura has not graded well in pass protection this year. He got beat up pretty bad in that Pittsburgh game. And this is an offensive line that lost Ronnie Stanley now. It lost Marshall Yanda this offseason. So it could use some reinforcements, and I think Mack makes some sense.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Will Fuller, the Texans wide receiver. Obviously on the trading block, they don't have the cap space to resign him, and he's obviously talented enough on a team that's going to be picking in the top 10, even though it's not their pick this year. I'm going him to the Green Bay Packers because they need someone besides Davante Adams that can get open. In their 2 losses this year, the receivers not named Davante Adams have combined for 5 total catches. In those 2 losses, that has been their problem, is not having a plan B out when teams go ahead and double their number 1 receiver there in Green Bay. So Will Fuller to Green Bay gives them a chance at making it through the NFC in the playoffs.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.